all of the propaganda, it doesn't matter. Those followers, they want the truth. They want to know, why is everything so much more difficult? Why does everything seem so different to me than it seems to my boomer parents, boomer uncles, grandparents, and so on? Where did all this come from? Why is it happening? Is it fixable? They want to hear from the honest truth tellers. And so there isn't really putting the genie back in the bottle at this point, other than full-on censorship, crackdown on free speech, thought policing, full-on 1984 stuff. It's a very precarious state. This is late-stage empire decline kind of situation where the only other solution when the propaganda stops working to anesthetize the people, you have to resort to full-on totalitarianism, because they're not going to peacefully cooperate anymore. They're not going to stay sedated. They are so unhappy with the cultural, spiritual, ethnic situation, economic situation, that there's no amount of makeup you can put on a pig and pretend that it's a beauty queen.
The destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the super states that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
Good afternoon and welcome to Beholden To Truth. It is your humble host, Joshua, here with you for another fun happy hour session, sitting outside of the gym, getting ourselves mentally prepared for a leg day. Gotta do it, no skipping it, just has to be done. Sipping our pre-workout, trying to get caffeinated, getting our right headspace before we go make our physical gains. But as always, I have plenty of fun, amusing topics to talk to you guys about in terms of politics and awareness of the situation around us. Fighting for the things that Beholden To Truth has stood for the last 4 going on 5 years. White identity, Christian culture, the fitness lifestyle. Those are our 3 core mission objectives. All of them are inextricably tied together. You can't be mentally healthy if you're not physically healthy. If you're not mentally and physically healthy, then it's hard to have a positive spiritual outlook. It plays backwards as well. Your spiritual outlook informs your mental health and your physical health. So all of these simultaneous 3 priorities are the purpose of Beholden To Truth existing, is to stand on truth that all 3 of these matters of self-investment and health are non-negotiable. So we work on them all every single day, one small little brick applied one day at a time. And eventually you build yourself a nice little kingdom for yourself, and then you teach other people how to do the same, and you pass that knowledge on to your children. And that's how we get things back on track in this society. So I have a number of different topics that I want to talk to you guys today about. We're going to talk a little bit about the economy, more about, though, this scandal, if you want to call it that, as if this is new or news, about the gambling and rigged games, whether it's the NBA, whether it's the NFL, whether it's boxing matches, horse racing, UFC. This stuff has been going on forever. Okay, sports betting has been a criminal syndicate for as long as it has existed. So long as there has been competition, there have been people who have been rigging it and betting on it to enrich themselves at the expense of the stupid goyim who are distracted by the bread and circus. And this stuff, I genuinely don't understand how people don't know about it. Because I remember going back to high school in Western civilization, the class called Western civilization. They talk about Rome and they talk about the bread and circus and how it is a tool of the government or of the principalities to keep the people obedient and docile. It's genuinely that simple. Like, I learned about these things when I was a young teenager, that so long as you give the proletariat bread and the circus, they will stay docile. They won't revolt against the principalities and the many different objectives and priorities they have that aren't necessarily for the best of the people. And the sports realm of that, whether it's going all the way back to Rome and the gladiators, or throughout all of time, all of the organized sports that you watch for entertainment purposes, it's for that purpose. It is to keep you distracted. But there are also these side peripheral advantages to the people on the inside circle who own the sports teams, who own the betting agencies. This is one of the reasons why gambling is a sin. It's supposed to be illegal. But the profiteering that happens with that inner circle at the expense of you and I or any stupid goyim who think that they're going to somehow bet against the house and win. It's no different than going to a casino, okay? Casinos are for-profit endeavors. It might be true that on some very rare occasion, somebody walks up, pulls the slot machine, wins a bunch of money, or somebody is really, really good at poker and blackjack, and they are able to make it a profitable endeavor. But the business model itself is a for-profit, and that profit comes from the pockets of the average person who cannot outsmart the system, and it's far beyond the average. It's the overwhelming 90-plus majority of participants in gambling. They are losing their money and they are giving it to the people, to the system that owns that gambling institution, whether it's a casino or a sports betting business, whatever it may be. You're just handing over your money, for one, and for two, you're handing over your time and attention, which is even more important than your money. So if you've been following the newswire over the last week, all of these leaks have come out about how the NBA games are rigged, how NFL games are rigged. Some athlete is told to take a dive, fake an injury, accidentally screw up on a play at the last crucial moment of the game to throw it, to organize plays to make sure certain people get so many points or certain number of turnovers or something happens in a certain quarter or half. You know, all these various ways people bet on sports activities. It's just organized crime, okay? Like, it's unbelievable to me that people don't know this. When we talk about everything being fake and gay, did you think that that was an exception to sports? No, it's not, especially when it's at the for-profit level of the professional leagues. So these stories have been breaking, and people are posting plays that they suspect are probably evidence of these rigged games and whatnot. And I want to talk through a couple of bullet points in regards to sports and the bread and circus in general. One of the viral clips that I saw this week was from Tim Dillon, who is a podcaster, who is a comedian, very famous guy. He's gone on Joe Rogan, plenty of other platforms, very, very funny, usually based on pretty much all topics. But it's a connected subject, the sports and entertainment, the bread and circus, gambling and all that. This particular viral clip of Tim Dillon was him talking about how there's a very clear divide between the age demographics of boomers and how they see the world and Gen Z, millennials, and the economics that they're facing in their actual lives.
Are realizing they're being propagandized at a level that older people gladly accepted. It was normal. It was fine. Older people were okay with being propagandized as long as they got a few things out of it. The young people are getting nothing out of it. Wait, you're lying to us and I can't own a house? I can barely have a job? I have to be forced into the gig economy? I get to deliver burritos? And I have to listen to this bullshit? And I have to pretend that this is all real? And I can't afford frozen yogurt with my girlfriend? And I have to go along with this horse shit? And I have nothing and no money for it? If you're doing something, you want to get something out of it. If you are going to delude yourself and believe the bullshit on the news, you have to get a little bit out of it. And what Americans got for many years was a patch of dirt, a little driveway, and a chance. They don't have any of that anymore. We've taken that all away from them. We've pushed them into a gig economy. We've pushed them into the hellscape of rent that goes up every single year. And the propaganda is actually getting worse. It's getting more disconnected from reality, more Orwellian. We're asking them to believe crazier and crazier things and taking away the little bit that most people had. People don't want to be billionaires. People want a house, a family, a little retirement plan, some money in the bank if there's an emergency. They want health care. They want some kind of steady job. They want a community with people that share their values. They're getting none of that right now. They're getting none of that.
When the boomers came up, when America was still 90% white, 90% Christian, meaning most people were mutually invested in the protection of the culture of the society and the religious faith of the society and the cohesion of it all, there was still bread and circus activity, okay? Hollywood still existed. Professional sports still existed, obviously. The music industry, just take your pick. All these things still existed. And even when people were more educated on Western civilization and how these power dynamics work, there was a little bit more of an acceptance and a general tolerance for the knowing that the bread and circus is there to do what it does, to keep you distracted. It's not like people didn't know this back then, but there was a bit more acceptance to go along with it because times were still good. Culture was still generally morally upright. And the cultural fabric of the country, the ethnic and racial subjects, and their allegiances, their ways of life, those were still coherent and cohesive. We still had a homogenous society. So even if you suspected that the news was lying to you, even if you suspected that the games were rigged, even if you knew that Hollywood was largely a propaganda outlet, and the same with the music industry, you still were able to hold a single income family household where the dad goes out and work, the mom stays home and raises the kids, make sure the house is tidy, make sure food is on the table, make sure that when the husband comes home from providing, that is a largely stress-free, or at least not needlessly stressful environment. The people were still going to church. The churches weren't compromised by a bunch of Zionists. The churches weren't led by female pastors. The churches weren't marrying gay couples. People weren't aborting half of their children. The majority of marriages were staying together for the full term of both of their lives. When society was still morally upright, as much as it realistically can be with the Christian framework, it was a little bit more excusable to watch some football on the weekend, or just turn on the top 10 songs on the radio, go see a film. Those things were a little bit more understandable, largely because people didn't feel like they were being fucked over from every single angle. They weren't being taxed 50% of their income to pay for foreigners to come and live in their neighborhoods and change the cultural fabric of the society, insist that they speak different languages, insist that they tolerate their religions, insist that they finance foreign nations all over the world, insist that they financially subsidize them when they get here and in perpetuity, including their children when they go on and have them. People were generally okay, with just going along to get along. Even if you suspected that a lot of this stuff was corrupt, that it had ulterior motives, like I said, the general family could still afford a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that was in good shape, that they were investing in, they were accumulating equity in. They could afford to have a car or two. They weren't completely raped by medical insurance premiums that made it unaffordable to even have children or to even get sick. Groceries were 10% of their monthly budget, if that. Everybody wasn't crippled by financial debt with student debt. There wasn't so much pressure, cultural pressure, economic pressure, religious erosion, making everybody so uncomfortable to where they didn't have to examine with high levels of scrutiny everything that they saw on TV and everything that was seemingly for entertainment to look for all of these subversive tactics. Everybody was honestly sedated because the times were still good. But as Tim Dillon goes on in this viral clip to explain, that is an entirely different lived experience than anybody who is millennial or Gen Z, where in order to have a comfortable lifestyle, just comfortable, I'm not talking about wealthy, I'm not talking about a luxurious lifestyle, just to be comfortable, to be married and have a child, you got to be pulling down $125,000, $150,000 in most states of the country. And if you want to live on the West Coast, East Coast, you got to be pulling down hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so this divide where the boomers still see the world as, oh, well, all you got to do is get a college degree, which back then cost them 1/10 of the amount, relatively speaking, adjusted for inflation, of course. Got to get your education, work hard. If you do that, you'll be able to have a wife and kids and a home, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to save for retirement, retire at 62 years old, live the American dream. You'll still have money to go on vacations. You'll be able to take your family out to eat. When things happen with your house or your car, sudden medical expenses, it won't be a crisis. So long as you just work hard, things are going to be all right. Yeah, that's not the world that millennials live in, okay? In order to buy a home, a starter home these days costs $350,000, $400,000, and that's in one of these lower cost of living states. To get your average college degree, it's like $60,000, $75,000 at the lower end. You want to get a more prestigious degree, you're talking about over 100K, 200K or more. Don't even look at the Ivy League schools. You want to go grocery shopping to feed a family of 2 or 3, you're talking $500 to $1,000 a month. The cumulative costs of the inflation that we have suffered, of the stagnation in wage growth, of the financial subsidies that we are obligated to pay for freeloading immigrants and non-workers, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And so when the average millennial goes out into the world, they're not seeing the same level of opportunity to have families, to simply live in comfort as the boomers felt when they were coming up in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so that makes them far less tolerant when they see overt, obvious propaganda, manipulation, this insistence that you be distracted by the bread and circus, go see the latest Hollywood movie, listen to your Taylor Swift albums, watch the NFL and the MLB and the NBA. Please just stay distracted by all these really, really good athletes and celebrity idols. Do not pay attention to the fact that you can't afford a home, you can't afford groceries, you can't afford to go to college. In the workplace, you're competing with people who will work for 50% less than you because they're coming from a foreign country that is living in perpetual destitution. And the employers have no particular incentive to hire you than them, the cost of labor being half as much, whether they're H-1B workers working in the low skill industries like farm workers and carpenters and stuff like that, or the higher skilled Silicon Valley H-1B immigrants who our government are currently protecting and inviting hundreds of thousands of more in per year. You're competing against them, and you're also having to deal with the bureaucratic, Larry Fink, George Soros dictated DEI mandates on these corporate entities that say you have to, you being the company, you have to hire non-white people. You have to hire women. So if you're a traditional white male looking to provide for your family and scale your career, you're competing not only in terms of a glut of supply because of the immigrants, but you're also competing against imposed mandates that say, do not hire this person because they are white or because they are male. And so you're a young white guy trying to go out there and strike out your path in life. You're seeing so many negative incentives that why would you be okay simply saying, all right, I'll live an anesthetized life. I won't complain when Trump says we need 500,000 Chinese immigrants to come in on visas. I won't complain when they say we need an infinity number of Indians to come work in Silicon Valley, or another infinity number of Hispanics to pick our grapes and to put up drywall for us. I won't complain about any of those things. I won't complain when female CEOs want to have their workshop for women and Women's Day celebrations and have your Black employee networks and Hispanic employee networks. I won't complain when all these other ethnic groups get to openly demonstrate their nepotistic desires, whether it's in the workplace, in the culture, in the government, wherever it may be, in the college institutions. I won't complain about any of these things while I am being impoverished, while I'm being slandered, told that I'm a hateful person for pointing out any of these things. Our patience has run out, okay? We do not feel like it is immoral or hateful or in any way morally questionable to say that we're being fucked over. I don't care what the newest Transformer movie, how much CGI or how entertaining it may be. I don't care how good these athletes are, okay? I don't care how catchy the music is. The bread and circus is not working, okay? We can't afford groceries. We can't afford to buy a house. We can't afford to have children. No, we are not going to be distracted by the bread and fucking circus.
Meeting the people that you actually want to meet this day and age is basically impossible. Well, I have a solution to these problems. You're wearing your anti-Zog merchandise, that cutie from across the gym. She knows what the Zog is. She knows that Save Europa is code for white genocide. Or if it's somebody of the same gender, boom, you just got yourself a new best friend. This is your opportunity. Everybody's always complaining about how hard it is to find people who know what's really going on. Well, this is it. This is how you broadcast those beliefs to the world.
All of the propaganda, it doesn't matter. It's not going to work at this point, which puts the government and the principalities in a very scary position when they realize that the propaganda is no longer working. It's a very precarious state. You know, this is late stage empire decline kind of situation where the only other solution when the propaganda stops working to anesthetize the people, you have to resort to full-on totalitarianism, because they're not going to peacefully cooperate anymore. They're not going to stay sedated. They are so unhappy with the cultural, spiritual, ethnic situation, economic situation, that there's no amount of makeup you can put on a pig and pretend that it's a beauty queen. Okay, this is where we are. We are that unhappy. People are that restless. And you really don't want that to turn into desperation. And so unless the media corporations and the government are going to say, you know what, all this propaganda just isn't working, let's start telling the truth. That's not going to happen. And so they're going to have to resort to full-on censorship and totalitarianism and thought policing to swat down anybody who is pointing out all of these grievances. There's going to be full-on crackdowns on all of social media. And this reminds me of what Ted Kaczynski talked about in terms of being a dissident to the system. Anybody who is a dissident to the system is going to be ostracized. They're going to lose their jobs. They're not going to be allowed to run for government. They have to be sequestered and put away, quarantined away from the populace, because they easily draw attention and eyeballs in the same way that Nick has accumulated his following, in the same way that I have accumulated 110,000 followers over on Instagram. Those followers want to hear how bad things are. They want the truth. They want to know, why is everything so much more difficult? Why does everything seem so different to me than it seems to my boomer parents, boomer uncles, grandparents, and so on? Where did all this come from? Why is it happening? Is it fixable? They want to hear from the honest truth tellers. And so there isn't really putting the genie back in the bottle at this point, other than full-on censorship, crackdown on free speech, thought policing, full-on 1984 stuff. So that clip from Tim Dillon was particularly interesting to me because it really does speak to the problem of propaganda and how easily it is dismantled when the circumstances around us are just so obviously in contradiction to what they are trying to tell us they are. The economy is doing better than it ever has. You know, like inflation is coming down. These lies that they tell with smiles on their face, completely gaslighting everybody, they're not going to hold up much longer. So that's that Tim Dillon thing. And it is related to all of the NBA and NFL and all those things being rigged. I want to talk a little bit more about that, because when you tune into these various distractions, and I know there's some excusable reasons to do so. And for example, I live in Alabama. If you know about college football or football in general, then you understand college football is a way of life. It's practically a surrogate religion in Alabama and in the South, Texas, Florida, etc. And so I grew up indoctrinated into thinking that this is like a critical activity in my life. All of my family members, every single Saturday, we're watching football, minimum 4 hours of it, because that's how long one football game takes. But oftentimes the teams are competing for rankings so they can make the postseason playoffs and whatnot. And you want to see if the other teams who are ranked ahead of you or who you may have to play against in the playoffs, you want to see how their games are going, studying your opponent. And so suddenly your entire Saturday is spent from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., 9 p.m. You spend 12 hours, all of your waking time on one of the only 2 days that you're not working, distracted with college football. And then if you really love football, guess what you're going to do Sunday? Oh, you're going to watch the NFL, and you're going to do the same thing. And nowadays you're going to fill out your stupid little fantasy football thing where you track individual athletes' performances and you assemble a make-believe football team that you play against other people's make-believe football team to see who knows the sport of football better. It's honestly to see who is wasting more of their time watching football than the other person. And then if you want to get involved on the gambling side of all of that, then you're placing bets on all of this stuff. It's absolutely insane the amount of time people devote to sports ball, as it is called. And this is just talking NFL, Saturdays, Sundays. Then you have Wednesday night or Thursday night football. I want to talk through a couple of the other reasons why you shouldn't be participating in this. And this is probably preaching to the choir with my following. But obviously, as I just said, you're talking about a huge, huge time drain on your life. That's the most obvious. But some of the other stuff that I found more sinister about watching mainstream television, you're watching it on CBS, Fox, ABC, ESPN, whatever it may be. It's not even just the game itself that you watch. Everybody knows every 10 minutes or less, you're subjected to commercials. And I do mean subjected. You're being raped mentally with these commercials. And the commercials are just a nonstop string of propaganda. And it's not even hidden. The moment you become red pilled, just watch one commercial break and you'll see pharmaceutical ads trying to sell you poison, keep you addicted into the sick care system. Then you'll see a promotion for the newest Hollywood movie. Then you'll see a promotion for the new Goy Slop entree and appetizer at Applebee's. Then you'll see some commercial for Target or Walmart or wherever else where you have the black husband and the white wife and the little mixed race kid. It's just nonstop, every single piece of it. Some company wants to talk about their values. Some government contractor is going to talk about how they're such an important company and all this other stuff. And of course, the woman's a CEO and they're an equal opportunity employer and they want to brag about that. Whatever company, whether it's Nike, Levi's, whatever retailer is going to run their promotion for their new summer or spring line, what do you know? They have a bunch of diverse models running around in their seasonal clothing just to remind you how multicultural America is. And of course, one of them has to be a tranny. Half of them are going to be fat to remind you that you can be healthy at any weight. Body positivity nonsense. I mean, it's like, seriously, every commercial is some kind of propaganda. And of course, they have to plug whatever shitty sitcom is going to come on after the game or on some other night of the week where they want you to invest more of your time distracted watching the female FBI agent tackle criminals as if that is anywhere remotely how the world actually works. You know, it's just insane. Like, I remember somebody said, I can't remember who is responsible for this famous quote, but it was back in the age of television first coming upon the scene. I don't remember who the quote is from, but it said, having a television is like having a Jew in your living room. That is the single most accurate, succinct statement you can make about television. That is what it is. Hey, watch the newest Hollywood movie. Hey, go bet on this betting website. Hey, look at this sexy new model in this new Hollywood film. Hey, did you know that blacks are the same as whites, who are the same as Hispanics, who are the same as Jews, who are the same as Indians? And it's completely immoral for you to think otherwise. Hey, didn't you know that men and women are interchangeable? It's all of this subliminal cultural Marxism embedded in the commercials and in the programming itself. It's just nonstop. It's a constant drip of it from the single second you turn the television on, whether it's sports, sitcoms, reality TV, whatever else it is that you're wasting your time watching. You are being subjugated to mental rape, cultural rape. Your race is being genocided off of the planet, and they are openly celebrating it. It might be subliminal, but it's actually not. When you watch it, when you know what's going on, and you see the next sitcom has yet another mixed race couple. What was that? The Last of Us show, where the white couple, of course, dad's an alcoholic, because, you know, that's how it is with dads, the white guy dad. Oh, but of course they have to go and adopt a little black child. And of course, you have to have a morbidly obese sibling, and you have to see how hard it is for her to be obese, and we all should empathize with that. And the good-looking Chad is an actor, of course, so that's his chosen career, idolatry in Hollywood. Man, people were telling me, like, you have to watch this show. It's so good. It's just saccharine, sappy, disgusting, honestly, programming at every single level. The marriages suck. Oh, guess what? After I think it's like Mandy Moore is the wife. After she divorces the alcoholic white husband, because, white husbands are always alcoholics and shitty fathers, who does she go on and marry? Of course she marries a non-white guy. I'm like, bro, how do you not see this stuff? Why are you watching none of this is good. None of it. There isn't a good show on TV. They won't allow good television to exist. Okay? So it's the subliminal programming, the Goyslop commercials. By the way, just passively, by tuning into these things, you are supporting, just right here, this Zionist occupation of our government, the genocide in Gaza, the capture of our nation, the reason why we have to have open borders and infinite immigration, the reason why we have to have female CEOs and boss girls and the gynocracy telling us what to do, why we have to have abortion legalized, gay marriage legalized, why we have to have all of these things. It's because when you turn on that programming, you are financing the people who want those things. Who runs ABC, which is tied in with Disney and ESPN? Oh, they just put Barry Weiss, who is a literal Israeli spy, in charge of ABC. Who did that? Larry Ellison's son. Larry Ellison, who just went and bought the majority stake in TikTok, who immediately imposed algorithmic changes to suppress pro-Palestine content and suppressing any kind of anti-Jewish rhetoric on TikTok, which was previously one of the few safe havens for free speech because it was owned by the Chinese. And so it's a capture of the social media. It's a capture of the legacy media. When you use these things, you are putting money into their pockets. They get to determine the content that is shown on their programming. They get to determine who the advertisers are in the middle of in the middle of all of that programming. So you are just financing the proliferation of all of these toxic cultural ideologies, the gender ideology, the sexual orientation bullshit, all of the anti-white, anti-masculine, anti-Christian programming. You are the one financing that. When you watch these sports programs, when you watch the mainstream television, you're paying for all of that. You are literally paying for the genocide of your own race, the destruction of your nation, the fall of Christendom. There's no reason why you should be complicit in any of this. I mentioned before the enormous time sink that following all of these various things, watching seasons of television shows, watching entire seasons of sports, enabling the gambling syndicate that I mentioned earlier. You got to get rid of this stuff. I know it's difficult because in my example, growing up in Alabama, it's a huge family activity. Everybody cooks good food, spends time together. But you really do have to eject from the matrix. It sucks. I mean, just the other day, my dad called me, hey, did you watch the Alabama game? And this is me, somebody who watched every Alabama game, 12 to 15 of them per year for the first 33 years of my life, okay? I haven't watched a single one this year. I watched one or two last year explicitly because I was at someone else's house spending time with them, and that's the chosen activity that they wanted to do. And that's how it is with the family situation. Okay, look, if that's what your parents insist on doing on Saturday or Sunday or whatever, and you want to still spend time with your parents because they're boomers, they don't get that it's all bread and circus. They don't get that they are complicit in everything bad that is happening to this country by participating in that. But that's the only time you have to spend with them. Okay, I'm not criticizing you for that. And that's the exception I make for myself. Like, okay, if you want to see your parents on the weekend, this is what they're doing. And there is some love in there. You know, they're cooking good food. And of course, you're going to catch up about your job and family and stuff like that. So those positive bonds of family still take place. But anchoring them around this idolatry of celebrity and sports and supporting all of those subliminal messages in the programming, turning all of these honestly useless black individuals into celebrities, giving them $15-40 million contracts, elevating them to celebrity status, creating this culture of resentment where black people think that, oh, well, because LeBron James is a celebrity and he makes hundreds of millions of dollars, that clearly means that black people's contributions to this society are equal. Look at Michael Jordan and how important he was to America. Okay, what? Who gives a fuck? If Tiger Woods never existed, if Bo Jackson never existed, if LeBron James never existed, if any of the black athletes who contribute to sports never existed, did you know that those sports would have still taken place? Oh, maybe they would have been lower score. Maybe some of the records, how fast they sprint, how many points they score, maybe they would be less. Who gives a fuck? If the whole thing is simply about entertainment, people were watching sports before black people were allowed to participate in them. Did you know that? And people were just as happy to watch it when it was all white. True story. The contribution of black people in sports is not a cultural positive. All it has done is provide an illusion for black people to think that they have contributed something meaningful to society. Higher points or lower points in golf, more Olympic gold medals. Seriously, that's your contribution to society? Erase all of that. Would society still be the same? Yeah, I think it actually would. Honestly, I don't think there would be any difference at all. And so there's just, as I said, an infinite number of reasons to eject from the matrix when it comes to this mainstream programming. We can't tolerate it. You should not be complicit in it. You are financing the genocide of people all over the world. And more importantly, here domestically, you are financing the replacement of white people. You are financing the gynocracy, this feminism structure that we live in, all of the anti-family, anti-Christian programming. Let it go, man. Just let it go, okay? Please. Move on. Be a grown-up. Focus on your education, your career, your physical health, your spiritual health, and your family. That's it. That's all you really need to be doing. You do not need 12 hours of leisurely entertainment in a single day. You don't need 4 hours. You don't need 2 hours. If you are investing in yourself, you will start to find joy from those activities, whether it's going to the gym, learning a trade, reading scripture, getting educated, watching documentaries, polishing your articulation on all of these various subjects, developing the courage to talk about them. Pick your chosen preference. Do something that is positive, that yields dividends in the future. Knowing how many touchdowns somebody scores in a season is not information that yields dividends over time. Putting together the best fantasy football team is not something that creates dividends over time. You're not a better person. You're not more knowledgeable about anything that actually matters. You're not more useful to society or your family. I think that's enough on this topic, honestly. I don't need to go on and on about getting yourself extricated from the matrix, the bread and circus distractions.
The few brave men who have actually tried to go out and do something about white genocide or talk about Jewish influence, the Zionist-occupied government, we all know that they get crucified, their careers get destroyed, and so we need to find ways to support each other. One of the ways that I have done that is by creating my Substack, where there are exclusive early access to documentaries, my weekly vlogs, there are ebooks there. There's even an opportunity to set up a one-on-one 30-minute Ask Me Anything if you'd like. All of the proceeds from my Substack, from my YouTube channel, from the merch gets reinvested in the platform. I use that to pay my employees. I use that to buy the equipment that I need, the cameras, the lights, the MacBook, all the books, all of the software, pay for marketing, everything else, but also it protects my literal life. So if you want to help out, please do head on to Substack, get yourself a subscription. Thank you. I appreciate it. America first and Christ is King.